Hi everyone, I'm Rejoice, and today we have the privilege of speaking with Johan on the Umatta Consultant podcast. Johan is the Vice Dean of MBA programs and Professor of Marketing at the NUS Business School, National University of Singapore. And I would love for him to also introduce himself as he sees fit so we can ask more questions. Johan, the mic is yours.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Rejoice. Absolute pleasure to be here with you. I mean, my background is actually quite interesting. I'm used to be a banker, so I did finance and accounting, and I did all the German banking exams. But I fell in love with marketing, moved to marketing. I did a PhD at the London Business School, and I then focused on services marketing. And after that, joined consulting companies, always in the service space. So at that time, I worked on cable TV, satellite TV, pay TV, later on mobile. And today, of course, all the AI and Gen AI and agentic AI and all of those topics. So I've been, in a way, if you will, in the services and technology and marketing space my whole career. And I've been for the last 30 years in the executive MBA space, and most recently, last few years, also MBA. So before I was always academic director of the NUS Executive MBA program. Then I launched together with UCLA, the UCLA NUS Executive MBA program. So it has been an exciting journey. Technology has been my passion all the way because the service sector historically has been lagging in productivity growth. I mean, we had the agricultural revolution and the industrial revolution that brought an immense wealth to our economies here. But the service sector has been lagging. And if you will, we have an insatiable demand for services such as, which I think are the two most important services for the well-being of all of us, and that is healthcare and education.
Hmm.
Whether you are a rich country or a poor country, you have to get these two sectors right. And I think now with technology, finally, we can have a similar service revolution like the other revolutions. And why? I'm terribly excited because at the moment, all of these technologies are coming together. So we see
Wow.
the NVIDIA chips, right? We see mobile technology, geotagging, biometrics. We see robotics. We see everything from facial recognition to large language models. Then we have large visual models, now large behavioral models. Then we get agentic AI. And that allows us to do things now that were just impossible only a few years ago. And we will, as we discuss here today, they will have a significant impact on the service sector. And I predict an equally significant impact as we had in the Industrial Revolution, which, as we all know, killed millions and millions of jobs. Yes, all of the shoemakers and dressmakers and furniture makers were gone because these products were then produced in factories at scale at a fraction of the cost. And at the same time, it dramatically increased our standard of living because we could buy those things for less and less and less and less cost. And with cost, we never say in terms of dollar terms because we have inflation. We always say, how many hours or minutes do you have to work, let's say, to buy a liter of Coke or to buy a T-shirt? And that has been coming down the last 150 years. But not in the service sector, right? I mean, in the US, right, your healthcare sector costs are exploding, education costs are exploding. And I think we have the opportunity now to reverse that dramatically with, as we discuss in this podcast here, incredible implications for all the firms and providers of these types of services. But let me stop here and hand over to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your introduction. I love what you have already shared with us, particularly about healthcare and education sector being impacted the most. Do you see AI as a complement to human workers or replacement in the long run? And how should businesses balance efficiency with the workforce
Yeah.
concerns?
I mean, let me first answer most impact. I don't think healthcare and education have the most impact or the fastest impact, but they're the most exciting because they're the most important for our well-being. And that's
Mm.
not just in the US, where I think everyone agrees healthcare doesn't really work. Yeah. um, and education, by and large, except your elite universities and private schools, also doesn't work. So the US, actually, if you ask me, in some parts is world class, and in other parts is sort of an average developing country almost, you know. So,
Mm.
so I think they hold the greatest promise here. But the
Mm.
greatest impact is really in what I call, first, it's happening in what we call information processing services. They're the first that will be fully scalable and automated. And that is any type of service you can deliver on an app, over a phone, via email, or via talking to someone. Yeah. And they will be scaled. So fastest shrinking job categories, for example, are call center staff. Yeah. I don't think anyone in the audience here wakes up in the morning and says, "Hey, I'm so excited today. I'm going to talk to my Amex credit card here." Right? We don't want to call Amex. Amex doesn't want you to call. And we only call why? Because the website, the app doesn't do what we need to do, right? So I think a lot of these services now with much better AI agents and much better design will eliminate the need for all of those calls here. And I mean, let me also, information processing service, you may not see it this way, but education in many ways is also an information processing service. And let me give you two examples here. One is, um, for example, how to train, whether it is languages, whether it is, let's say, presentation skills. This can all be trained with scalable solutions rather than through human teachers here. And for example, there's a solution here for teaching how to give public speeches, and is a metaverse solution. You put it on, and I can tell you, for example, Hilton in Asia here, they don't fly people in for training anymore. It's all in the metaverse. You stay in your home with a metaverse goggle. You pick that up from HR, and rather than paying hotels and flights, you do the training and the simulations and all of that in your own home or in an office in your hometown. And for this training, let's say for public speaking here, you get a goggle and there are drop down menus. Am I addressing a 3,000 audience in a keynote? Am I addressing 20 people in a boardroom? So is it a motivational speech? Am I selling something? Do I need to convince people? So you have these few drop down options here, and then you give your 10-minute speech. So you're walking up, you have your goggles on and you see the audience, they respond to you and you talk. And then you get a detailed analytics back, such as you talked a lot to this side of the room, but you ignored the other side of the room. You hardly made eye contact with the audience. You had a lot of filler words, a lot of ahs and ums and ohs. You didn't stop after the full stop. You talked too fast. Yeah, um, your voice was too monotonous. So I think you get the picture. You get a really detailed analysis based on your performance. And then the next thing you do is the technology will tell you, or you have your virtual teacher in there, your coach. Your coach will tell you, "Hey, Jochen, let's try this again. And this time you drop the filler word. So concentrate not saying ah and and so on. So do the same thing again." And then you do it again. And then if that is okay, the next thing is, "Okay, Jochen, now let's try, after a full stop, make a short break." Yeah. And then the next thing is, "Now let's vary your voice. And finally, let's make eye contact." Right? You can see how whether you learn Spanish, whether you learn French, whether you learn Mandarin, pronunciation is often a problem. This technology can teach you how to move your lips, how to move your tongue, and how to breathe. And you speak into the microphone until you get the pronunciation right. So I just want to show you, this is in education, my space. So I'm Vice Dean MBA programs For example, virtually all of our statistics for business, mathematics for business, basic economics, I don't use expensive professors for this anymore. I white label courses from Harvard Business School Publishing, Pearson Education, McGraw-Hill, edX, Coursera. We source everywhere. We work with Emeritus, which is an Indian Washington startup. So we work with everyone. Whoever has great material, we're very happy. We take it, we white label it, meaning we put our logo on it and our program name on it, and I even put my professor's name on it. But I don't pay the professor for the teaching anymore. You know, what the professor does, he or she will configure that for our students, meaning we do module 1 to 7 and then 9 to 11 and then 15. And we do this assessment, this assignment, this video. So the professor just structures the whole thing so that it fits into our MBA. And yes, of course, we give credit for the professor doing that, but it's a lot less effort than teaching a course. And then once configured, I can run it for something like statistics or economics. I mean, that doesn't change every year. I can run that course for 3, 4, 5 years, right? And
Save
so,
costs.
so you can see where we are going here. So in many cases, we will make education as cheap as something like Google Maps, which everyone can use. Could be advertising funded. It's cheap enough. I mean, if I have a language course in French, I can take you shopping at the Champs-Élysées, and maybe you go into the Louis Vuitton shop, and maybe there's in program purchasing, for example. Yeah. So, I mean, we don't even know yet where all of that will go. But what happens is then that there will be more and more usage of these kind of services that provide incredible value, like today's many apps already provide. But let me stop here and hand over to you that I don't talk all the time. Yeah.
No worries. Absolutely phenomenal. Phenomenal. You mentioned the industrialization of service. Could you elaborate on what this means and how companies can successfully implement this concept?
Okay. So, I mean, industrialization of service means you make these services scalable. Yeah. And that means the holy grail is what we call end-to-end automation of customer service processes, meaning there is no more human involved. And to me, the world champion in this, even with old technology, if you will, has always been Google. All of us use Google. We use Google Maps, Google Search, Google Mail. Academics use Google Scholar. I challenge our audience here. How many of you ever spoke to a Google employee or emailed or chatted with a Google employee about their service where you got customer support? None of us, right? Why? Google has billions of transactions every day. If they had designed their services that any of them needs customer service, they would die, right? They want their service to be scalable, and that means the worst thing that should happen with a Google service is you shut down the app and start it again, right?
That's true.
And modern services, I don't know in the US whether you have these type of services, but I know that I mean, two UK fintechs, they are in the US because I use them in the US. One is called Wise and the other is Revolut. So Wise, there are global companies that were first designed to attack the fat margins of credit cards. So credit cards are incredibly expensive to use if you don't use them in your home currency, because number one, if you take an Amex card, there's a 3 or 5% commission on foreign currency usage. And on top of that, they give you a really shitty exchange rate. You know? So if you spend $1,000 hotel overseas, you pay another $60, $70 just for using your credit card here. So Wise attacked these margins by saying, look, I only have a 0.5 or 0.6% commission, and I give you completely fair exchange rates. So the value proposition is unparalleled cheap to use internationally. And Revolut is exactly the same. There are two companies that started in the UK. But the nice thing is these cards, or these companies, they have now banking licenses in the US, in the EU, in Singapore, in Australia, in the UK. So I have relatively complex needs because I get, let's say, speakers fees, royalties from all of these places. And in the past, all of that money was transferred to my online bank in Germany. For every non-euro transaction, they charged me 19 euros and 95 and a shitty exchange rate again. and now what happens is I have, if Joyce, if you want to send me money, I give you my US account. I have a US account via Wise. I can give you my bank account and you send me the money there. For you, it's a domestic transfer. For me, I get dollars. So if you send me $100, I get $100. And it now sits in my US account and I can use it, let's say, to shop on Amazon in the US and no cost involved. Only if I take that money and now, let's say, transfer that or exchange that to Singapore dollars, there's a 0.5% fee. But again, completely fair exchange rate. Just want to show you, this is a fintech that
Right.
in essence took 3,000 euros in margin away from my online bank in Germany because they don't get that money anymore. I'm saving these 3,000 euros and I can now go onto a beach holiday in Bali or somewhere on that money. Yeah.
Exactly.
And,
Exactly.
and look, I have relatively complicated needs,
Hmm.
but have a guess how many times I ever interacted with a customer service rep of Wise. It was zero. Because the whole thing is designed in a way that it works without customer service.
Exactly.
And I mean, here in Singapore, we have something called SyncPass that means it's the know your customer bit of banks. So I can give Wise is registered in Singapore here. So to open my account was a 40-second thing where I said, look, SyncPass, can we port over your data from SyncPass? Yes, there's an API. I click OK. My account was opened. And the whole thing is designed in a way that it is robust and safe and easy and you don't need customer service. So that is what we mean by industrialization. This service is very much like any app you download from your app store and configure. My telco is the same thing. I moved from an expensive traditional telco here in Singapore. Now my telco is an app.
Wow.
Yeah. And when I go roaming, all I do is I buy, I don't know how many gigabytes roaming fees for that country. It's just a click. And when the roaming, when the capacity is gone, it basically asks me, do you want to buy another package? Yes or no? It's unparalleled cheap. And I had in the past roaming fees that were out of your mind when I was not careful in the country. That doesn't happen to me anymore. But you can see where we are going with this. I mean, how many banks does this world need? Currently, don't know the US, but I think it's tens of thousands of banks in the US. Germany has thousands of banks. How many do we really need if they're scalable like Wise, which is on a global level here? So, I mean, the banks to me are like the shoemakers during the Industrial Revolution. Most of these banks will be out of business simply because the fixed cost, the overhead for technology, for all of the shared services from HR to finance to you name it, right? Security and governance and all of that. It's just too much. And
It's true.
I mean, it's a matter of time. I mean, my bank lost with me 3,000 euros in contribution that they don't earn anymore. And if
Wow.
enough people do that, there is pressure on them to reduce staff. And you can see as this becomes less and less and less profitable, there will be consolidation and massive dying. And you can ask yourself, I mean, how many Google Maps or how many Maps apps do we need in this world?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I mean, one is too little because Google is too powerful. Yeah. but maybe we don't need more than we probably need a Russian and a Chinese and a European and an American because they don't trust each other anymore. but we probably don't need more than 10.
Yes.
And the same will be true for many, many industries that are currently incredibly fragmented with thousands and hundreds and millions of suppliers. So that's what we mean by industrialization of our economies, of the service sector, at the same time having this massive concentration that will happen. And I'm in a business school. My prediction is most MBA programs will go out of business in the next 30 years. Yeah. There's no more, I mean, there's no more space for mediocre, high cost MBA programs if you can do something that is scalable, much better, best practice. And I mean, you ask, will it replace human labor? It will be different. So, I mean, look, you take a top brand like Harvard or Stanford, they could spend the money on building world-class metaverse or online classrooms and modules or courses here. And the cost is so high that you need scale to do it, but they have the brand and they can do it. And at the same time, it doesn't mean there will be no more human touch. So if you're a strong enough brand, you can say, look, you are in Washington, in New York, in Los Angeles, in Singapore, in London. So what we do is you are part of this MBA, and every Saturday morning on the last Saturday of the month, we will all meet in a hotel downtown. There will be a facilitator. I don't use expensive professors. Maybe I use alumni. Yeah. I use alumni or I use other lower cost facilitators who then work with the group to sort of discuss these frameworks and other things. So even peer grading and all of these things, we don't know yet exactly all of the tools and technologies we can use, but I'm convinced that we will have scalable, top-notch quality MBAs that are delivered mostly online, where the most expensive resource is your professors and the building, and I can
Right.
take that out.
Johan, do you think workers should be worried, or should they be looking for new opportunities at this time?
I mean, that is a very good question. And in we just published our book, Agentic Artificial Intelligence. And before we had a book called Intelligent Automation. And we had two scenarios in there, optimistic and pessimistic. Right? The truth may be in between the two.
Okay.
But the optimistic scenario is, look, this revolution is no different from past revolutions. So yes, the agricultural revolution killed 80% of the jobs we had then. Today, hardly anyone works in agriculture anymore, and the jobs are completely transformed. They have nothing to do anymore with what an agricultural job was 200 years ago. Manufacturing, the same thing happened. We hardly have these sweatshops anymore, and the number of jobs are very few now in manufacturing. Because I know Trump wants to get manufacturing jobs back, but I'm not too sure when you see factories in Bangladesh or India, whether you want to have these factories back in the US. I doubt it. What you want is probably very modern factories. Like, I mean, I've seen the General Motors factory in Shanghai. That's like Star Wars when you see these welding robots and so on. It's unbelievable. But very few jobs.
Yes.
Yeah, very few actually humans involved here. So I think service the same. So our optimistic scenario is, look, in the past, every revolution killed a lot of jobs, but then created more new jobs we didn't even know existed.
Very true.
So
Very true.
15 years ago, we didn't know that being an Airbnb host can be a job. Or an Uber driver can be a job, right? We didn't know. So we have no idea what these new jobs will be here. But they will be a lot more related to people. Yeah, because the stuff we need in terms of buying stuff and the basic services. I mean, I just was on a panel with the managing director of McDonald's here in Singapore. I mean, I'm sure in the US it's the same, right? You go to a McDonald's, you don't talk to anyone. It's a screen where you order. It's a screen where you pay. You get a QR code on your phone or a number. Then a number shows on a screen and you pick up your things. Currently, the pickup is still a person giving it to you, but it could be a box tomorrow where you put your phone on it, it opens, and you get your food. And what happens inside the restaurant, whether the fries are done by a robot or by a machine or by a human, I promise you in 10 years it will be all by machines. Yeah. So a lot of these jobs will be gone. So I mean, the optimistic scenario is that there will be a lot new jobs that come, and they could be related to elderly care, child care, where there's an immense shortage of labor currently here and a huge need for people. Um, so there will be this change in the jobs we will have, and it's not that we always say it's not AI will replace people, but people who use AI will replace people who don't use AI. So in that sense, it is the unskilled, those that cannot learn, that cannot upskill. Yeah, you should be worried because your value add and your earning power will decline. And that's nothing new that happened in the US over the last 30 years, that the least skilled had the least increase in real earnings here, whereas the most skilled had the highest increase in earning. And this technology will put further pressure onto that. Now,
Exactly.
the pessimistic scenario is basically this time is different. We will kill all of these jobs and we run out of work. And then we have to ask ourselves, how do we allow people to survive? And I mean, Pascal, my co-author, Pascal Bonnet, he's the main author on these two books. He is French, right? So he's very optimistic. He says, look, before the Industrial Revolution, we never identified ourselves through our jobs. It was much more important what's in the opera tonight, what book do you read, how's your piano, how is, it's the personal relationships, the other things in life that are more important is not your job. So he's very optimistic that, look, if work really runs out, we have a lot more interesting things to do than work. And but then you have to worry about what happens with people who can't feed themselves. And then we hit topics like universal basic income and so on. Yeah, but that also means if you offer universal basic income, that means that a country will become very attractive for immigration again, where they don't have it. Switzerland voted against universal basic income. Theirs was very high. I think it was like 3,000 or 4,000 Swiss franc a month, which is huge for most countries. Then the worry is, of course, oh, I get massive immigration, would love to get this universal basic income. So there will be other issues that will come up if you go there. Thing is, we don't know. Even economists don't agree on it. Probably we are somewhere in between that, yeah, maybe a lot of jobs will go. Some new jobs will be created, but they will be different and different skill sets will be needed.
Exactly.
Yeah, so yeah, we're in exciting times. And the one thing I can promise you, I tell my kids, and you will see that the next 30, 40, 50 years, the world will be so different.
Mm,
I mean, you just look the last 20, 30 years. 30 years ago, there was no Facebook, no social media, no
right.
iPhone, no apps, no Google Maps on your phone. So imagine.
Yes, that is very true. Very true. So there are also a lot of people who are very excited about all the changes that are going on, and the pessimists are concerned about bias, which is well documented in issues related to AI. What measures should be taken to prevent biases and ensure fairness in automation or decision making when it comes to AI?
I mean, no revolution so far was without significant downsides. Yeah, the Industrial Revolution brought unbelievable pollution to the planet. Initially had terrible working conditions for workers. Yeah. So I mean, that also had to be regulated, and I think the digital revolution or service revolution we're experiencing now will be no different. And I mean, we're talking about corporate digital responsibility here. Yeah. And there are really sort of three massive areas. That's ethics, fairness, and privacy, which we worry about. On the ethics bit, there are macro issues. So what if we outsource our elderly to robots and machines? What about human dignity, dehumanization, human contact? There's disempowerment. I mean, we don't make decisions anymore. I mean, already Google Maps tells me where to eat and where to stay, right? So I don't make these decisions anymore. So there are these big issues from us. There's also stuff like addiction.
Right.
Yeah. Then you have malleability of these technologies. None of the social media were designed to spread hate news and fake news. They were designed to create engagement. So happens that fake news, hate news creates engagement. That's why it pushes those, right? So this is in a way as if Zuckerberg could get everyone hooked onto Facebook and Instagram without spreading these news, he might consider,
Right.
And the other thing is, I mean, already today, I don't know, bookings.com, TripAdvisor, and all of those, you search for a hotel in a city, and the top hits you get is not what is best for you. It's what's best for the platform. And what's best for the platform is an algorithm that computes your probability of buying this
Right.
times the commission they get. Yeah. So I can increase the commission, then even if it's not as good for you, it will still be pushed to me because it's best for the platform. So, I mean, with this enhanced AI, what we will see is that the AI is better at predicting us than we ourselves. So we are being nudged and manipulated in certain directions here without even being aware of it. So I challenge our listeners here. You go out and ask how many people know that what they see on bookings.com and TripAdvisor is not what's best for them. The top hit is not what's best for them. Yeah, there's research on that. And the thing is that all of this manipulation is happening by for-profit businesses. Yeah, so that's a huge issue here, and that's very profitable. The next is fairness. I think you would have seen, I mean, GE credit cards had this big hoo-ha because everything the same, a lady got a lower credit line than a guy. Yeah, I mean, there's no bias-free AI. There's also no bias-free human decision-making. We know that. But still, I mean, AI, now we are scaling the whole thing. That means decisions on do you get a loan? And if yes, how much? And if yes, at what interest rate? These are decisions that are being made by an algorithm based on the riskiness of that person or that loan here. And then we have to worry about systematic biases in here. And privacy is the other thing. I mean, a colleague of mine, he did research on privacy on eBay. So that's for Germany. In Germany, if you sell something on eBay, you have to click agree to the privacy policy. Otherwise, you can't sell on eBay. Yeah. So that's what we call coercion here. You have no choice.
Right.
And if you click OK, your data are being shared with 900 eBay partners around the world, including in China. So your data go all the way to China. Yeah. So, I mean, you have to, I mean, these are challenges we have. And we did a big piece of research on corporate digital responsibility. We call the CDR calculus for firms. The problem is that being good is incredibly expensive because, I mean, you remember Zuckerberg in front of Congress, how he was whining and
Yeah.
he doesn't want to give privacy
Right.
because, I mean, just Apple asking for consent to share data with Facebook cost him, I think the estimates were like $10 billion in advertising revenue a year, because if you ask me, do I share? I click no. I only click yes if I see a tangible benefit. Yeah. So there, at that point, you don't see it. You click no, and that means that Meta's advertising is not as targeted as it could be with all of that information. If it is less targeted, I can charge less for the advertising, and that's where the 10 billion loss is there. So you tell me any business that gives up 10 billion in annual contribution just because I want to be good.
Right. You would.
So the challenge here is that for privacy, self-regulation didn't work. And it will also not for AI. And the challenge you have is between a stone and a hard place. I mean, look, Europe is the toughest on AI regulation. China is probably the least toughest, and US is just shifting from sort of in middle ground, somewhere closer to China now. And that means that it will help to drive the development of AI, but you're also not reining in the risks. So nobody knows what's right. So maybe you should rush ahead, and then it's sort of collateral damage if things go wrong in between, and you rein it in later again. Maybe, yeah, but I think nobody has an answer to that. Yes, I don't think the European approach is necessarily better. It's different. But I guess it reflects what the population wants. Yes, I think Europeans are a bit more risk averse, and I mean, maybe also because all the big tech companies are American, right?
That is true.
Maybe if they
That's
were
true.
German, they would be more open. I don't know.
That's very true. Very true. Yo, Chan, what advice would you give to businesses and professionals looking to stay ahead of this rapid evolve of the digital world?
I mean, I'm running a team of 42 people who are in my MBA programs office. So we do the marketing, admissions, program management of all our MBA and executive MBA programs here. And basically, we have been growing for the last 8 years without increasing much in headcount. And we grew significantly, and mostly because of we started to automate a lot of processes that were boring, repetitive, error prone. you know, what I have done is I think I did three things. Number one, I started annual innovation awards. So meaning I've got 42 people this year, I had over 20 presentations of projects they presented. Not all of them are technology, but maybe half of them are technology. Most of them cut paperwork and other unnecessary stuff. Some of them are really experiential learning. So my main investment as a business too is today, our MBA, I think we're the only program in the world that has a dual core. We have an experiential core and academic core curriculum. And we have experiential electives and academic electives. And today, my experiential team is as big as my academic team. And when 8 years ago, I had one person only in the experiential side now. So you can see, even for us, we say, look, a lot of the basic learning, yeah, I mean, that's becoming a commodity. Yes, you have to know it.
Mm-hmm.
So if you think you don't have to know stuff anymore, that's wrong. That is like, when I was young, the discussion was, do you allow calculators in the classroom? And I can tell you, if you are a banker who doesn't have numbers in their fingertips, or your CFO who doesn't know exactly what that number means, you're not an effective CFO. And it's the same with business. If you think, oh, I Google everything, and Google has now Gen AI, so I get a perfect summary. I don't have to know anything anymore. Yeah, I think you're very wrong. Actually, the best people are the ones who are deep experts on something, and then still have AI support.
Right.
Yeah. So, I mean, what I did is I created these innovation awards, number one. And I told everyone at the same time, the incentive system changed. I tell everyone, look, you want to get a promotion, you want to get a salary increase, you want to get a big bonus. Show me something you did that doesn't just excite me, but also excites the dean. and maybe even the president of the university. So I'm quite proud my team won a President's Award in Innovation last year, right? And
Amazing.
so that shows you, if you want to have a career in my team here, you have to do innovation. So, and at the same time, I allow everyone, or I encourage everyone, take courses. So I had two people who did masters in innovation management. I have a number of people I sponsored for MBA, EMBA programs. I sent people to a lot of conferences, conventions, and so on. And there's tons. I mean, we have LinkedIn Learning and many other sort of online courses and things. And if somebody needs a few $100s to do something online they want to do, fine. I so far, I don't recall ever saying no to any further education of anyone. And last year was the first time that every single team member did at least one formal course with one formal sort of qualification that came out of it. So this whole learning, and a lot of that was initially in Tableau and RPA, and now it's a lot more on AI and other things. So it's the incentives, is the facilitation here, if you will. And the last thing I did is I didn't get added headcount, but I carved out 2 headcount of people who are really tech experts, meaning I don't expect my team to be so familiar with Google Microsoft Forms, and we have SAP, right? And APIs. So there's a lot of technology involved. So I hired 2 people to do nothing but go from team to team and help them to automate the kind of things they want to automate. So they are working with the subject matter experts who really know that process inside out, and then help them to automate it. I mean, some stuff is very simple. So I give you an example. Years ago, we used to manually schedule admission interviews for our MBAs and EMBAs, and we have thousands of interviews.
Okay.
That's a nightmare, right?
Yes.
And I mean, I think 4 years ago, we put the whole thing online. So once you are qualified candidates, we tell you, hey, Rejoice, you have to do an interview now. Please go to this website and schedule yourself an interview. And I mean, our students, they come from all over the Americas, Europe, all over Asia, so all time zones, right?
Right.
Now you schedule your own interview, and if you want to change it, just change it yourself. Don't even need to tell me, right? You do it on your end. So I mean, this is a very low-tech, white-labeled kind of scheduling software that's connected to our email system. You get an automated email before the interview. Hey, Rejoice, your interview is tomorrow at 8 p.m. Please be ready, right? Log on 10 minutes early. And so I mean, there's no more. So we automated the entire admission process almost with all of the standard emails that we know. Or let's say a reference is missing from an employer, or you still have to do your interview, or you haven't submitted your GMAT, or your GMAT scores are not in yet. That used to be manual, and now, I mean, my team doesn't have to do this kind of boring checking and emailing anymore. And
Right.
every one of them was a little step. I mean, that's SAP and Salesforce and some sort of, let's say, scheduling website or something they plugged into it. And these are all these little innovations, let's say, my team member couldn't do, but they know exactly what needs to be done. And together with my 2 digital transformation team members here, they then do this. And the outcome is that we have less and less boring work. We can
Right.
grow without adding headcount. And overall, I find the team is a lot happier. I mean, we do. So for example, let's say 7, 8 years ago, we used to do paid advertising. Today, we do nothing anymore. I mean, it's very
Right.
minimal. We create digital assets of our professors, of our students, of our experiences here. And that's what my team does. They run around with a camera, they interview, they shoot stuff, they edit stuff, they give it to the students, and the students, we don't even want, we post it, but we want organic social media. We want our students to talk about it because, hey, let's say we have so many students from Microsoft, from Google, from Accenture. So if you work with Accenture, I want you to post it on your own LinkedIn, and then your colleagues and friends ask you, "Hey, Rejoice, how is that program?" And they say, "Oh, I love it. Why don't I introduce you to the admissions officer?" Right?
Exactly, exactly. It's so organic and it's so non-salesy. And people just love getting to hear from the original source, the people who actually attended the
Yes.
programs. And it just feels nicer. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much for today, for sharing your knowledge and experience with us. The future of work is bright. There's so much coming down the pipeline for the folks who are optimistic and those who are less optimistic concerning what's happening with the changes. But I think we all feel it. We all know that these changes are here. What are
Yes.
your last, I guess, advice or your last segue before we end the program today?
I am a very optimistic person. And I find many times I give talks. So I just gave a webinar yesterday. Almost all the comments I had were negative. And I think we have a bright new world ahead of us. Yes, there will be challenges, but rather than looking at all the downsides, look at the upsides. I give you one example. When I was a student in London, to call home to Germany cost me £2.60 per minute.
Wow.
So a 10-minute call was £26. And can you imagine how many pints that was at that time? So I didn't
Yes.
call home a lot. Today we have 3 children who are working all over the world. My wife and I travel a lot, but we have a 1 hour WhatsApp video call every Sunday afternoon Asia time.
Yes.
And that costs me what? That is
Zero.
zero, that is free. But because of that, we know what happens in our kids' lives and so on. That is a value that is incredible for us, and it is free.
Yes.
And there is a lot of stuff we use day in, day out that is virtually free, that is not captured in any economic statistics. There's no income earned, there's no the value created because no money flows. These services are so cheap that they're advertising funded.
Right.
And healthcare, I don't know about you, but anyone is ill on my side, I go to Mayo Clinic website, UK Clinic website, right? And I have 3 websites I check on what might this problem be. With all of these health health tech apps that come up, already you can use a camera, you can show your skin, you can show your eye, you can show your tongue, right? You can listen to your heartbeat. You can look at oxygen levels and so on through the camera. You can
Mhm.
cough into the microphone. It can tell you whether you have COVID or TB. So,
Right.
this kind of, you could connect it to health tech like Fitbit and so on. So, we don't know yet. It's not possible to predict. But I can tell you that a lot of the stuff we are taking for granted that only happened the last 10, 15 years, there will be a lot more of that in the next 15 years in terms of learning and health and how we live our lives. And I think a lot of things that today are frustrating, troublesome, unpleasant will be gone. So be
Exactly.
optimistic is my final message. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Johan. We appreciate your advice and also sharing the research you have done and the amazing work that's going on currently. So, thank you so much. And we hope you have a wonderful rest of your day and look forward to connecting with you again on this topic.
Wonderful, Rejoice. It was a pleasure to be with you.
Likewise.